All right, ready for a deep dive into loneliness today.
Sounds intriguing.
We've got this article, blends philosophy, psychology, neuroscience, the whole shebang.
Really trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And it's more important than we might think. This article says chronic loneliness hits your health as hard as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty stark comparison.
Makes you think, right? But get this. The article also suggests loneliness can actually help us grow, lead to even stronger connections.
Oh, that's interesting. Kind of a silver lining, huh?
Exactly. I'm
And
really curious to see how they connect those dots.
yeah, flipping the script on loneliness, that's a pretty unique angle.
For sure. And, it's kind of ironic we're more connected than ever, right? Social media, all that.
You'd think we'd have this loneliness thing figured out.
Right. But the article says 1 in 3 U.S. adults still feel lonely every week.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant number.
Makes you wonder if we're connecting in the right ways. I mean, haven't you ever felt completely alone, even surrounded by people?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, you're there, but not really there.
Exactly. And the article really gets into that, the difference between being alone and feeling lonely, like solitude, what some philosophers like Schopenhauer were into. That can be a good thing, even empowering.
Right. Choosing to be alone versus feeling isolated. Big difference.
So how does that fit in with this whole loneliness is bad for you thing? Can solitude, even if it's intentional, work in our modern world?
Well, that's where they bring in Carl Jung. He said it's not just about how many people you're around, but about being able to express, communicate what's really important to you.
So it's more internal than external.
Yeah, precisely. Jung believed that if we ignore our unconscious mind, all those deeper thoughts and feelings, it can lead to this feeling of emptiness, disconnection.
Oh, okay. So it's like we're out of sync with ourselves.
Yeah, you could say that. He also had this idea of the shadow self, the parts of ourselves we tend to hide, reject even. And he thought that projecting those insecurities outward just makes us feel more isolated.
Makes sense. So how do we actually use Jung's ideas to fight loneliness? This is where the article gets really practical, right? 5 strategies they lay out.
Yep. And they all tie back to Jung's main points. Know yourself better, build more authentic connections.
Okay, what's the first strategy?
It's all about becoming your own best friend. We hear that a lot, but they put it in a Jungian context, self-care as a way to strengthen the relationship with yourself.
So more than just like bubble baths and face masks, it's about really digging deep and getting to know yourself.
Exactly. The article talks about Jungian psychologist Marie-Louise von Franz. She was adamant that we shouldn't blame outside stuff for our loneliness. Instead, we got to embrace our inner selves, even the messy parts.
Easier said than done, I bet. How do they suggest we actually do that?
Well, they stress self-awareness. Pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, actions, the whole 9 yards. And spend time doing stuff you actually enjoy, even if it means saying no to things that drain you.
So setting boundaries is a form of self-care. Interesting. But does it actually help with loneliness? Wouldn't more alone time make you feel more lonely?
That's where the mindset shift comes in. It's not about isolating yourself. It's about choosing solitude over feeling forced into it by, outside pressures. It's creating a space to recharge, connect with your inner world.
So maybe Schopenhauer was onto something with his whole solitude thing. But in today's world, it's got to be intentional, right? Choosing to disconnect from the noise, reconnect with yourself.
Exactly. And they argue that, by strengthening that relationship with yourself, you're actually better equipped to connect authentically with other people.
Okay, starting to see how this all fits together, what's the next strategy? How do we transform this loneliness?
The next one is letting go of perfectionism in relationships. We all have these, idealized versions of what friendships or relationships should be. The article challenges that. It says chasing this perfection can actually prevent real connections.
It's like setting ourselves up for disappointment. I
Yeah.
mean, no relationship is perfect, right?
Exactly. The article even quotes Seneca, the Stoic philosopher. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, true friendship is built on shared values, not superficial stuff. It's not about finding your clone. It's about connecting on a deeper level through shared values, experiences.
Man, that quote hits home. I've definitely had friendships fizzle out because I was trying too hard to make them fit some ideal.
And that's where the article brings up Jung's idea of individuation, becoming your own unique person. It suggests that how we relate to others often mirrors our own inner struggles. So work through your own stuff, and your relationships might actually improve.
So being okay with our own imperfections helps us accept imperfections in others.
You got it. It's about letting go of that need to control everything, letting relationships unfold naturally. Because let's face it, the best connections are often the ones that surprise us.
This is making me rethink how I approach relationships. Okay, what's next? What else can we do?
Number 3 is cultivating compassion.
Seems pretty straightforward, right? Be nice to people? But I'm guessing there's more to it than that.
Oh, there is. This goes beyond basic kindness. It's about real empathy, understanding. They actually cite research from Brené Brown, the vulnerability and shame expert.
Oh, I love Brené Brown. What does she have to say about compassion and loneliness?
Well, she found that being willing to open up, connect on an emotional level, that's crucial for strong relationships. It's about showing up for people, even when it's uncomfortable, and letting ourselves be seen, vulnerable, and all.
Being present, authentic, even when it feels risky.
Exactly. And the article suggests that even little acts of kindness, like checking in on a friend who's having a tough time or just listening, can have a ripple effect, creating a more positive, connected environment.
And it helps us too, right? Doing something kind for others can boost our own mood.
It's a win-win. Focusing on connecting with others in a real, supportive way creates a positive cycle for everyone involved.
I like that. A positive cycle. Okay, what's next in our fight against loneliness?
This next one is about finding your tribe. It tackles that feeling of being lonely in a crowd, surrounded by people but not really connecting with anyone.
I know that feeling all too well. It's like speaking a different language.
Exactly. And the article digs into Jung's concept of archetypes. These are like universal patterns of behavior and thought operating in our unconscious. He believed we're drawn to people who resonate with our own deeper patterns, our values, how we see the world.
So it's about finding people who get you on a fundamental level.
Precisely. Instead of trying to fit in with people who don't share your values or interests, the article encourages actively seeking out communities and groups that align with your true self.
Which is easier than ever these days, right? Online forums, social media groups, local clubs, meetups, you name it, there's a community for it.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate shared activities. Volunteering, book clubs, cooking classes, whatever. These shared experiences can really help you bond with people who share your passions.
It's not just about finding people like you, it's about doing things with people who inspire you, challenge you to grow.
Exactly. It's about belonging and shared purpose. Super important for battling loneliness.
This is all so insightful. I'm actually feeling way more optimistic about this whole loneliness thing. But we've got one more strategy, and it's a big one in our digital world. What does the article say about technology and loneliness?
Well, it acknowledges that technology is kind of a double-edged sword. It can be super isolating, especially with the constant comparisons and, perfectly curated lives we see on social media.
Yeah, highlight reel.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, it can be a powerful tool for connection, especially for people who have a hard time with, traditional social interaction.
So using it mindfully is key. Not getting sucked into the endless scroll, but actually using it to connect in a meaningful way.
Precisely. The article emphasizes live conversations, online events, and using tech to connect authentically, not just passively consuming content.
Instead of just scrolling, actually use it to have conversations, learn from each other, maybe even build real friendships.
And don't underestimate those virtual connections. The Harvard study on adult development, which has been following people for like 80 years, found that close relationships, whether in person or online, are a major factor in happiness and well-being.
Wow, so those virtual connections can actually make a real difference. But we do need to take breaks too, right? Put down the phone, step away from the screen.
Oh, absolutely. The article stresses protecting our mental health by setting boundaries with tech. Use it as a tool. Don't let it control your life.
This has been such an eye-opening discussion. We've covered so much already, from philosophy to psychology to practical strategies.
And we're not done yet. In the next part of this deep dive, we'll explore the conclusion. It ends on a really beautiful, poetic note with a quote from Albert Camus.
Ooh, intriguing. Can you give us a little sneak peek?
Let's just say it speaks to that resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of loneliness when we embrace it.
Can't wait to hear more. So, to all you deep divers out there, stay tuned for part 2. We'll unpack that ending and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. Back for more on loneliness. Really looking forward to that Camus quote you mentioned. Sounded pretty deep.
It is, yeah. Gets right to the heart of things. It goes, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer."
Whoa. Okay. Lots to unpack there. What do you think he meant by that?
To me, it's about that inner strength, the one we all have. Even when we're feeling lost and alone, it's like even in the darkest times, there's this warmth, this resilience inside that can never be snuffed out.
So, not denying the loneliness, but finding the strength to move through it.
Yeah, exactly. The article really stresses that. Loneliness isn't like a personal failure or something. It's
Mhm.
universal. Everybody goes through it. It's what you do with it that matters.
That's actually really reassuring. Okay, everyone feels lonely sometimes. It's not just me. But how do we actually make that shift, from seeing it as a negative to seeing it as a chance to grow?
Well, the article suggests a few things. First, just acknowledge the feeling. Don't judge yourself for it. Instead of like beating yourself up, be curious about it. What's causing this? What need isn't being met?
So get curious about it instead of pushing it away.
Exactly. And once you kind of figure out the root cause, you can start to address it. Maybe that means talking to a friend, trying a new hobby, or even, talking to a therapist if you're really struggling.
We talked about that statistic earlier. 1 in 3 U.S. adults feeling lonely every week. That's a lot of people. Knowing that, it makes it feel less like something's wrong with me and more like this is just part of being human.
Right, exactly. It takes the shame out of it. You can be
Mhm.
more compassionate to yourself and others.
Compassion seems to be a big theme here. Came up in those 5 strategies, too.
Definitely a common thread throughout the whole article. It's about recognizing we're all connected. And what we do, even small things, can affect the people around us.
You know that Camus quote about the invincible summer within? It makes me think about the power of connection. Maybe that strength comes not just from inside us, but from the love and support we get from others.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The article doesn't specifically say that, but I think you're right. We need each other. Those bonds we build can be incredibly powerful, especially when things are tough.
Thinking back to those 5 strategies, which one really stood out to you?
That's a tough one. They all kind of work together. But if I had to pick, finding your tribe really resonates with me. That feeling of belonging, being around people who really get you, that can be really powerful against loneliness.
Totally agree, like you're finally speaking the same language. But it makes you wonder, in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, opinions, how do we even know what our tribe is anymore? How do we find those people who share our values?
That's a great question. Honestly, no easy answer. It's a journey, trying new things, putting yourself out there, maybe revisiting old passions, exploring new interests, could be joining a club, volunteering, even connecting with people online who share your hobbies.
So being proactive, intentional about seeking out connections.
Exactly. And your tribe might not be what you expect. It could be people from all different backgrounds, ages, experiences. The key is feeling seen, heard, valued for who you are.
Makes me think about letting go of perfectionism in relationships. Maybe finding your tribe isn't about finding perfect people, but about finding people who accept you, flaws and all.
I love that. It's about embracing the messiness of human connection. True belonging comes from authenticity and vulnerability.
This whole conversation has really changed how I think about loneliness. It's not something to fear or avoid, but something to understand, maybe even embrace.
And it's not permanent. It's a feeling. It comes and goes. By trying some of these strategies, you can actually transform it into a source of growth, connection.
This has been so insightful. I'm sure our listeners are feeling inspired to take action. But before we do that, what were your final takeaways from the article?
Well, it ends on a hopeful note. It says that loneliness isn't the opposite of connection, but a stepping stone towards it. By facing it head on, understanding the root causes, we can come out of it stronger, more connected.
That's powerful. It's like saying, hey, you're not broken, you're not alone, and there's a way forward.
Exactly. And that path will be different for everyone. But the important thing is to keep moving forward, keep exploring. Never give up on finding connection, belonging.
Love that. So, for all our listeners who are feeling lonely, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Start small. Pick one of the strategies we talked about and try it out. Maybe it's self-care, reaching out to a friend, trying a new hobby. Doesn't have to be a huge change. Even small steps can make a difference in how you feel and how you connect with the world.
Great advice. It's a journey, not a destination, Rice. There will be ups and downs, times of connection, times of solitude. But by approaching loneliness with compassion, with a willingness to learn and grow, you can actually use it to create a more fulfilling, connected life. Back again, wrapping up our deep dive on loneliness. This conversation has really shifted my perspective. It's not just about fixing a problem. It's about Like understanding something deeper about being human.
Yeah, exactly. Loneliness, it's often painful, sure,
Yeah.
but it can also be this incredible opportunity for growth, self-discovery.
We started by talking about the impact, right? That statistic, loneliness being as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, that really grabbed my attention too.
But then we went deeper, philosophy, psychology, all those layers of this complex emotion.
Schopenhauer, Jung, all those big thinkers had a lot to say about it.
Right. And those insights really set us up for those 5 strategies, those tools for transformation. It's not just about avoiding loneliness, it's about like using it to build something better.
Yeah, from self-care to relationships, each strategy gives us a way to navigate those feelings, those moments of isolation, and create connections that actually matter.
And compassion, right. Compassion for ourselves and for others. It keeps coming back throughout the conversation.
It's like this undercurrent reminding us that we're all in this together.
That Camus quote, the invincible summer within, it really ties it all together. Finding that strength, that resilience to face loneliness and come out the other side stronger, more connected.
A beautiful image, isn't it? That inner strength that we all have.
So, as we wrap up, what's the key takeaway you hope listeners walk away with?
Hmm. I think the most important thing is that loneliness isn't a weakness. It's a signal, a chance to understand ourselves better and to search for those connections that truly nourish us.
It's about recognizing that we all need to belong, and there are ways to fulfill that need in a healthy, positive way.
And it's a journey, not a destination. We'll have moments when we feel connected and moments when we feel alone. But if we keep moving forward, keep exploring, never give up on those connections, that's how we find the joy and purpose that make life meaningful.
That's beautifully said. So, to everyone listening out there, remember, you are not alone.
And you have the power within you to transform loneliness into something positive, something that leads you to growth, connection, and a deeper sense of belonging.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into loneliness. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring.